The Galactic Deathworld Summit was the most prestigious survival contest in the known universe. Every century, the most terrifying species from the harshest planets would gather to determine which evolutionary path had created the ultimate survivor. The competition was brutal, unforgiving, and watched by trillions across thousands of worlds. Species that evolved on planets with crushing gravity, perpetual firestorms, or atmospheres of pure acid would battle not only the environment but each other in a test of ultimate survival. In the vast chamber of the Interstellar Selection Committee, a heated debate had erupted over the latest automatic rankings. "This must be a malfunction," growled Commander Thulos, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights as he jabbed a clawed appendage at the holographic display. "Humans? From planet SAL-3? This cannot be serious." The committee members, representing 27 of the galaxy's most powerful species, collectively expressed their disdain through a variety of biological reactions. Some released pheromones of amusement, others flickered bioluminescent patterns that roughly translated to laughter. Ambassador Zyexith, a massive, undulating mass of sensory tendrils, rippled contemptuously. "I have reviewed the preliminary data. These humans are classified as mere Tier 2 endurance species. They aren't even apex predators on their own world. Their listed notable achievements include something called reality television and social media influencers. What place do such creatures have among the Deathworld elite?" A series of images flickered across the display. Bipedal organisms with minimal physical protection, known natural weapons beyond blunt teeth, and fragile-looking limbs. Next to the hulking forms of previous champions like the Trogathians or the acid-blooded Vizieri, they looked like prey animals. "Perhaps we should invite them anyway," suggested Commander Thulos with a dangerous grin that exposed 4 rows of serrated teeth. "The viewers always enjoy a bit of comedic relief. They'll be eliminated in the first phase, but the ratings will be magnificent. Imagine their faces when they realize what they've walked into." The committee agreed unanimously. It would be entertaining, at the very least, to watch these soft creatures face the horrors of true survival. A formal invitation was dispatched to Earth, encoded in universal mathematical language, as was traditional. None of them expected a response. On Earth, in the headquarters of the International Space Exploration Consortium, Director Sarah Kestrel stared at the decoded message with a mixture of disbelief and excitement. "A galactic-scale survival competition," she murmured, running a hand through her short auburn hair. "And they specifically invited humans?" Dr. Neotis Singh, the consortium's lead xenobiologist, adjusted her glasses as she reviewed the data. "According to this, we'll be competing against species from some of the most hazardous environments in the galaxy. The conditions will be, well, lethal by human standards. Exactly why we need to send our best," Kestrel said firmly, already scrolling through personnel files on her tablet. "This isn't just a competition, it's first contact. We represent Earth." Within 48 hours, she had assembled her team. Dr. Neotis Singh, whose revolutionary work on extremophile organisms had changed our understanding of adaptability. Ravi Patel, an engineering prodigy who specialized in improvised survival technology. And Malachi Jackson, former Special Forces soldier turned wilderness survival expert who was notorious for having once tamed a pack of wolves during a training exercise gone wrong. "So let me get this straight," Malachi said during their first briefing, his easy smile contrasting with the serious topic. "We're going to compete in a cosmic version of Survivor against literal monsters from hell planets?" He paused, then grinned wider. "Cool. I needed a vacation." "This is hardly a vacation, Malachi," Neota admonished, though a smile tugged at her lips. "The gravitational forces alone could crush our bones, not to mention atmospheres potentially toxic to our biochemistry." Ravi, already sketching designs on his digital pad, looked up. "So I should pack extra socks, is what you're saying?" Kestrel couldn't help but laugh. "Pack whatever you think might save your life. We leave in 3 days." Their acceptance message was concise. "Earth accepts your invitation to the Deathworld Summit. We are currently setting odds of our survival at 1/10,000. Any takers on that bet? When the message reached the committee, Commander Thillos nearly choked on his nutrient slurry. They accepted, and they're making jokes. Perhaps they don't understand what they're agreeing to, suggested another committee member. Or perhaps, mused Ambassador Zoyaxith, they're even less intelligent than we thought. As the human team's transport ship docked with the massive orbital station serving as the gathering point for competitors, they got their first glimpse of their competition. The loading bay was filled with creatures straight out of nightmare. Towering behemoths with armored hides, swarms of coordinated insectoid entities that moved as one mind, serpentine beings that seemed to phase partially in and out of visible reality. Well, muttered Malachi as they collected their modest luggage, this is going to be interesting. They drew stares and what appeared to be the alien equivalent of laughter as they made their way through the station. Compared to the bristling weaponry, advanced exoskeletons, and specialized breathing apparatus of the other competitors, the humans appeared ludicrously unprepared. Ravi carried a backpack stuffed with tools and electronics. Nyota had carefully packed collection vials and portable analysis equipment. Malachi brought wilderness survival gear and, inexplicably, a small bag of beef jerky. Kestrel had opted for practical clothing with multiple pockets and a tablet containing every scrap of information Earth had about extraterrestrial biology. A massive warrior with skin like volcanic rock deliberately stepped into their path, forcing them to stop. It towered over them, muscles rippling beneath its crimson armor. "You are the humans?" It rumbled, translator technology converting its guttural language. "That's right," Kestrel responded calmly. "And you are?" "I am Kriegax, champion of the Trogathian Empire. I have crushed moons with my bare hands. My blood is like magma in my veins." The creature leaned down, sulphurous breath washing over them. "I'm told your species uses its fangs for bread consumption." Malachi snorted. "Among other things. Nice armor, by the way. You hit the gym often, or is that all natural?" The Trogathian blinked its 4 eyes in confusion, clearly not expecting casual conversation. Nearby, a cluster of insectoid creatures communicated through rapid clicks and hisses. The small pink ones brought containers of dried plant matter and animal flesh, one seemed to say. Their defensive capabilities appear non-existent. "Some of their companion animals display more ferocity than they do," added another. The humans simply smiled and kept walking, exhibiting none of the fear or intimidation the other species had expected. The orientation took place in a massive amphitheater. A holographic entity materialized in the center, the AI host of the competition. "Welcome, champions of the harshest worlds," it announced, voice booming throughout the chamber. "You stand among the galaxy's supreme survivors, evolutionarily perfected by crucibles of fire, acid, radiation, and war." One by one, the AI introduced the competitors with elaborate visual displays showcasing their homeworlds and evolutionary advantages. The Trogathians evolved under crushing gravity and constant volcanic activity. The Uthul Dominion, warriors from a world of perpetual electrical storms that had developed natural electromagnetic weaponry. The Xeric Hive, whose planet's atmosphere was laced with mutagenic compounds that accelerated their already frightening adaptation rate. When it came to the humans, the AI paused, almost as if confused. "And humans. From Earth. Tier 2 Deathworld." The introduction was so brief and dismissive that a ripple of what must have been laughter spread through the assembled competitors. "The competition will take place on Vorus 6, the AI continued, displaying a holographic representation of a nightmarish planet with churning purple clouds and landscapes that seemed to shift and morph. Recently discovered, Vorus 6 represents the pinnacle of environmental hostility, toxic atmosphere, predatory flora and fauna, extreme temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic anomalies, and acidic precipitation. You will be transported to separate drop zones. The last survivor claims the title of Deathworld Champion and the associated galactic honors. As the other competitors checked their equipment and weapons, the human team huddled together. "So, I was thinking," Malachi said casually, "if we encounter any edible wildlife, I brought some spices." Nyota blinked. "You pack spices for a death competition? Food morale is expedition morale," he shrugged. "Besides, who knows when we'll get another chance to taste alien barbecue." "I'm more concerned about our base setup," Ravi interjected, showing them schematics on his tablet. "I've designed a modular shelter system that should withstand most environmental hazards, assuming we can find suitable materials. And I want samples of everything," Nyota added. "Soil, water, atmospheric compounds, anything that might help us understand the biochemistry we're dealing with." Kestrel nodded, listening to them all. "We stay together, we observe before acting, and we remember our strengths. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we just might be the smartest." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "Current betting odds have us at 1/8000 now. Apparently someone thinks we have a chance." "Probably my mom," Malachi quipped. "She always bets on me." As they prepared to board their drop ship, a slithering creature with eyes spread across its torso hissed at them. "Your kind will provide excellent nourishment for the victors." "Looking forward to proving you wrong," Kestrel replied pleasantly. "Good luck." The drop to Vorus 6 was a chaotic descent through violently turbulent purple clouds that discharged lightning against their ship's shields. Through viewport glimpses, they caught sight of twisted landscapes, forests of crystalline structures that pulsed with bioluminescence, plains of what appeared to be undulating flesh-like terrain, and mountain ranges that seemed to shift position between lightning flashes. "Fascinating," breathed Nyota, recording everything on her tablet. "The entire ecosystem appears to be in a state of accelerated evolution." Their landing was rough but controlled. The moment the hatch opened, they were assaulted by the environment. Air thick with particles that glittered menacingly, a gravity slightly stronger than Earth's, and a distant shrieking that might have been wind or might have been something alive. "Masks on," Kestrel ordered, sealing her own breathing apparatus in place. "No direct skin contact with anything until Nyota gives the all-clear." Through their goggles, they watched as across the valley, another dropship opened to reveal an enormous arachnoid creature that immediately leapt out, only to collapse writhing as the very air seemed to burn its exoskeleton. In another direction, a massive reptilian competitor stepped into what looked like a puddle, only to have its foot dissolved almost instantly by concentrated acid. "Right," Malachi said, his voice muffled by his mask. "Let's not do any of that." With methodical caution, they secured their immediate area. Ravi used a collapsible pole to test surfaces before anyone stepped on them. Nyota collected air samples and analyzed them with her portable equipment. Malachi scouted the perimeter, marking hazards with small colored flags. "The atmosphere contains at least 3 different compounds that would be lethal to human lungs," Nyota reported after an hour. "But our filtration masks should hold up, and I'm detecting pockets of more breathable air near those blue vegetation clusters." "The ground is stable in this radius," Ravi added, "but those shimmering patches about 50 meters west, there's some kind of quicksand that emits corrosive vapor when disturbed." Kestrel nodded. "Then we establish base camp here." "Malachi, what about wildlife?" "Definitely being watched," he confirmed. "Something that looks like a cross between a Komodo dragon and a Venus flytrap is stalking us from those rock formations. And there's a swarm of what might be flying jellyfish circling overhead. They seem territorial, but not immediately aggressive." While the other species charged into battle or fled from environmental hazards, the humans worked systematically. By nightfall, a relative term on a world with 3 small suns that created an eerie perpetual twilight, they had established a secure perimeter. Ravi had constructed a simple but effective shelter using their transport's emergency materials combined with local crystalline structures that proved surprisingly durable. Nyota worked tirelessly in their makeshift lab, testing samples and developing rudimentary countermeasures against the planet's toxins. "The biochemistry here is unlike anything I've seen," she explained. eyes bright with scientific excitement despite the circumstances. But there are patterns, exploitable weaknesses. Malachi had done the impossible. He'd managed to approach one of the smaller predators, a six-legged creature with iridescent scales and razor-sharp appendages, using dried meat as bait. The creature now hovered at the edge of their camp, watching them with compound eyes, but no longer displaying aggression. "I named him Sparkles," Malachi announced proudly. "He likes jerky and seems to scare off the flying jellyfish things." "You tamed a Deathworld predator in less than 12 hours?" Nyota asked incredulously. Malachi shrugged. "Food is a universal language. Also, I think he's a juvenile, probably curious about us." Ravi, meanwhile, had jury-rigged a communication device from their equipment and parts salvaged from their landing craft. "I've been monitoring the competition broadcasts," he reported. "We're creating quite a stir. Apparently, everyone expected us to die immediately." "What are our new odds?" Kestrel asked, smiling behind her mask. "Down to 1/500, Ravi replied, "and falling fast." As night deepened, bringing new dangers in the form of bioluminescent spores that drifted through the air like deadly fireflies, they gathered in their shelter to plan. "Tomorrow we expand our perimeter and look for water sources," Kestrel decided. "Nyota, keep working on understanding the biochemistry here. Ravi, we need better filtration and protection. Malachi, try not to adopt any more lethal pets." "No promises," he grinned. On the other side of the competition zone, disaster struck for many of the supposedly superior species. The Xeric hive encountered a field of mind-altering pollen that turned them against each other in a frenzy of self-destruction. A Trogathian warrior stumbled into a cave system inhabited by creatures that hunted through sound, using the warrior's own heartbeat to track and swarm it. The Uthul competitor discharged its electromagnetic defenses during an acid rainstorm, creating a feedback loop that fried its nervous system. Across the galaxy, viewers watched in disbelief as the fragile humans not only survived but thrived. They observed, adapted, and overcame each obstacle with calculated precision. When acid rain fell, they had already constructed rain catchers that filtered the caustic liquid into usable water. When electromagnetic storms disrupted their equipment, Ravi had backup systems ready to deploy. "I don't understand," Commander Thulos raged, watching the broadcast from the safety of the orbital station. "How are these primitive creatures surviving when champions with millennia of evolutionary advantages are failing? They're cooperating," Ambassador Zyaxith observed with reluctant admiration, each using specialized knowledge rather than relying on physical adaptations. The betting markets were in chaos. Odds on human survival had shortened dramatically to 1/50th, costing gambling syndicates across the galaxy enormous sums. The broadcast ratings had never been higher. Everyone wanted to see how these unlikely competitors would inevitably fall. On the morning of the third day, that fall seemed imminent when a surviving Uthul warrior, enraged by the humans' unexpected success, decided to eliminate the competition personally. The massive creature, crackling with bioelectricity, attacked their camp while Ravi was outside, reinforcing their perimeter. "Incoming!" Ravi shouted, diving for cover as electrical discharges scorched the ground around him. The Uthul warrior roared, its translator crackling with static. "Die, weaklings! Your success mocks the natural order." But the humans had prepared for this possibility. Kestrel gave a hand signal, and their response was immediate and coordinated. Nyota threw a container of collected spores that temporarily blinded the attacker. Malachi and Sparkles, who had indeed become something of a guard animal, flanked the creature from both sides. The crucial moment came when the Uthul charged directly at Kestrel, who stood her ground until the last possible moment before dropping flat. The momentum carried the warrior straight into a patch of the quicksand-like substance they had carefully marked and avoided, but whose properties they had thoroughly documented. The warrior sank rapidly, its electrical discharges only accelerating the process as the substance reacted violently to the energy. Within minutes, The threat was neutralized without the humans having to engage in direct combat. Well, that was exciting, Malachi quipped, catching his breath. Anyone else hungry? That evening, as they enjoyed a meal of safely processed local vegetation, after Neota's careful analysis, and some of their packed rations, an unexpected discovery changed everything. These mineral formations, Neota said, examining readings on her tablet. They contain compounds that could revolutionize regenerative medicine on Earth. The way they interact with biological tissue is unprecedented. Controlled cell regeneration without cancer risk. And these crystal structures, Ravi added, holding up a shard that refracted light in impossible patterns. They naturally absorb and store energy in quantities that make our best batteries look like potatoes with copper wires. So what you're saying, Kestrel summarized, is that this death trap of a planet is actually a treasure trove of valuable resources. Exactly, Neota confirmed. In trying to kill us, they've actually given us access to the scientific opportunity of a century. Malachi, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. You know what this place reminds me of? Those extreme adventure tours rich people pay fortunes for back on Earth. The ones where they climb Everest or dive to the Mariana Trench. You're suggesting we turn a Deathworld into a tourist destination? Ravi asked incredulously. Why not? Malachi grinned. With the right safeguards, guided tours, exclusive access, imagine the price tag we could put on Survive Vorus 6, the galaxy's most dangerous vacation. Their conversation was interrupted by a bone-shaking roar that echoed across the landscape. The ground trembled beneath them, and in the distance, they saw it, a colossal creature rising. From what they had thought was a mountain range. That wasn't a mountain, whispered Neota, her face pale behind her mask. That's a living organism. The creature, immediately dubbed the Titan by Malachi, was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its body seemed to shift between solid and semi-liquid states, covered in armor plating that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Multiple limbs extended from its central mass, each ending in appendages adapted for different forms of killing. Its head, if the upper portion could be called that, contained no recognizable sensory organs, yet clearly perceived its surroundings with terrifying accuracy. From their shelter's communication equipment, they heard the competition announcer. Behold the Apex Titan of Vorus 6, released early as a special challenge for our remaining competitors. Who will survive the ultimate predator? They're cheating, Ravi said flatly. They're trying to make sure we lose. Of course they are, Kestrel replied, already pulling up their maps and data, which means we're doing better than anyone expected. Neota, what can you tell us about that thing? The xenobiologist was already analyzing readings from their perimeter sensors. It's putting out massive energy signatures, electromagnetic pulses similar to but stronger than the Uthal competitor. Likely uses those fields to sense prey. And its outer covering, it seems to adapt to attacks, becoming resistant to whatever damaged it previously. So it learns, Kestrel summarized, gets stronger with each attack against it. Conventional weapons would be useless even if we had them. But everything has a weakness, Malachi insisted. What about internal biology? Something that big has to have systems that can be overwhelmed. Neota's eyes lit up. The regenerative compounds I've been studying. They work by accelerating certain biological processes. If we could introduce a synthesized version that accelerates too much, we could cause a cellular overload, Ravi finished. But we need a delivery system, something that could penetrate that armor. And a way to get close enough without being detected, Kestrel added. They worked through the night, utilizing every resource they had. Ravi constructed a launcher using parts from their shelter and landing craft, essentially a high-powered delivery system for Neota's synthesized compound. Malachi worked on a distraction strategy, using their knowledge of the local terrain and wildlife behaviors. Kestrel coordinated it all, running simulations on their tablets to maximize their slim chances of success. By dawn, the Titan had eliminated most of the remaining competitors. The orbital station's broadcast showed the creature's devastating efficiency, Warriors who had conquered worlds were tossed aside like toys, their advanced weapons and natural defenses proving futile against the Titan's adaptive capabilities. "It's moving in our direction," Ravi reported grimly, checking their perimeter sensors. "ETA 30 minutes, give or take." "Then we stick to the plan," Kestrel said firmly. "Positions, everyone." Their strategy was simple but elegant. Nyota had determined that the Titan used electromagnetic sensing to locate prey, much like the Uthul, but on a far grander scale. Ravi had built disruptors that would create false signatures, drawing the creature towards specific locations. Malachi and his growing collection of tamed local wildlife, now including 2 more predators he'd named Chompy and Princess, would provide additional distractions. When the Titan crested the ridge above their former camp, the humans were already gone, scattered to predetermined positions with Nyota's compound loaded into Ravi's delivery system. The first phase worked perfectly. The Titan followed the false signatures, confused by the contradictory inputs. When it paused, trying to reorient itself, Malachi triggered the first trap, a field of the crystalline structures they discovered could store and release energy. The resulting electromagnetic pulse temporarily disrupted the Titan's sensory capabilities. In that moment of confusion, Ravi fired the first shot from his makeshift launcher. The projectile, a concentrated dose of Nyota's compound encased in a delivery vehicle made from locally sourced materials, struck the creature's underside where their scans had indicated thinner armor plating. The Titan roared, more in annoyance than pain, and turned toward Ravi's position. This was the most dangerous part of their plan. The creature would now adapt to the attack, making subsequent hits more difficult. "Target locked." Kestrel's voice came through their communication devices. She was positioned on a high ridge, coordinating their movements. Malachi, Phase 2. Malachi and his unlikely animal allies created a chaotic pattern of movement and noise that further confused the Titan's senses. As it turned to track these new threats, Nyota fired the second shot from a completely different position, targeting a different area of the creature's body. This time, the Titan's roar held a note of genuine distress. The compound was working, overwhelming its cellular structure with hyper-accelerated regeneration that its systems couldn't control. "It's working," Nyota exclaimed. "The biology is destabilizing." But the Titan wasn't finished. With a speed belying its enormous size, it charged toward Nyota's position, devastating the landscape in its path. "Final phase," Kestrel ordered. "Converge on Point Delta." The team executed their most dangerous maneuver, drawing the increasingly unstable Titan toward a natural formation they discovered, a massive sinkhole filled with the same caustic substance that had claimed the Uthul warrior, but on an exponentially larger scale. As the Titan reached the edge of the hidden danger, Ravi fired the final, largest dose of the compound directly into what they believed was its central nervous system. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The creature's body began to convulse, its adaptive armor unable to cope with the internal biological cascade failure. With a final, earth-shaking step, the Titan collapsed forward into the sinkhole. The caustic substance bubbled and hissed, accelerating the creature's demise as Nyota's compound worked from within while the external corrosion attacked from without. The humans regrouped at a safe distance, breathing heavily but alive. For several long moments, they simply stared at the slowly sinking form of their opponent. "Did we just—" Ravi began. "Yeah," Malachi finished, an expression of disbelief on his face. "We just killed the unkillable." In the orbital station, silence reigned. The assembled dignitaries, betting syndicates, and competition organizers stared at their screens in absolute shock. The betting markets had completely collapsed. The 1 to 10,000 odds at the beginning meant that anyone who had placed even a small wager on human victory now stood to collect fortunes. "Impossible," whispered Commander Thulos. They had no natural advantages, no evolutionary adaptations to such environments. "No," Ambassador Zyexith replied slowly, its tendrils waving in a pattern indicating deep thought. "They had different advantages. Cooperation. creative problem solving, the ability to analyze and exploit weaknesses rather than relying on brute force. The AI host materialized in the center of the human team's vicinity, its holographic form flickering slightly in the planet's disruptive atmosphere. "Congratulations, champions of Earth," it announced. "You are the last survivors of the Deathworld Summit. As is tradition, you may claim your prize. Any reasonable request within the power of the Galactic Council to grant." The four humans looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. They had discussed this possibility, however remote it had seemed at the start. "We claim ownership rights to Vorus 6, Kestrel announced firmly. The AI paused, clearly processing this unexpected request. "Clarification required. You wish to own this death world? This planet has no habitable areas by standard classifications." Nevertheless, Kestrel continued, "As victors of the Deathworld Summit, we claim Vorus 6 as Earth's property, with all associated resource and development rights." In the orbital station, pandemonium erupted. "They want the planet? This toxic, deadly wasteland?" Commander Thulos bellowed. "For what purpose?" When humans explained their plans, the disbelief only grew. "We intend to establish Death World tourism," Kestrel explained to the assembled galactic representatives. "A controlled, high-end adventure destination for those seeking the ultimate survival experience." Additionally, Neota added, "Our research indicates that Vorus 6 contains biological and mineral resources with enormous medical and technological applications. We propose a cooperative research initiative with Earth controlling patents and licensing." "You invited us here as a joke," Ravi said, his voice firm despite addressing beings from civilizations thousands of years more advanced than Earth's. "You didn't think we'd survive. But in doing so, you've given humanity access to a resource that will accelerate our development by centuries." And Malachi couldn't resist adding, "You owe a lot of people a lot of money on those betting odds." After much deliberation and faced with the unbreakable rules of their own competition, the Galactic Council reluctantly acknowledged Earth's claim to Vorus 6. Some counselors, seeing the economic potential, even began to warm to the idea, particularly once human representatives mentioned exclusive deals for early investors. 5 years later, Vorus 6 was transformed. Where once there had been only death and danger, there now stood research stations, carefully constructed tourist facilities, and conservation areas preserving the planet's unique ecosystem. The "Survive the Unsurvivable" experience became the most exclusive vacation in the galaxy, with wealthy beings from thousands of worlds paying astronomical sums to experience a carefully controlled taste of genuine danger under the watchful guidance of human instructors. The medical compounds discovered on the planet revolutionized healthcare across multiple species. The energy-storing crystals became the foundation for a new generation of power systems. Earth's status in the galactic community soared from primitive curiosity to innovative upstarts almost overnight. On a viewing platform overlooking one of the more spectacular and slightly less lethal regions of Vorus 6, the original team gathered for a reunion. Kestrel, now the planetary administrator, poured coffee for her friends, a luxury they'd sorely missed during the competition. "Look at them," Malachi chuckled, pointing to a group of massive warriors from a supposedly superior species cowering in their environmental suits as one of his trained native creatures performed tricks nearby. "Still can't believe we turned this Hell's Cape into a resort." The research division has identified 16 new compounds with medical applications just this quarter, Neota reported, still as enthusiastic about the science as she'd been during their desperate days in the competition. And the genetic studies on adaptive biology are yielding promising results for enhanced human capabilities. "Infrastructure expansion is ahead of schedule," Ravi added. "The new Eastern facility will accommodate twice as many visitors, and the shield technology is holding steady against atmospheric degradation." Kestrel smiled, watching an acid storm roll across the distant plains, beautiful in its deadly majesty from the safety of their observation deck. "You know what the best part is? The next Deathworld Summit is in 20 years, and they've already formally requested Earth's participation. not as contestants, but as co-hosts. They invited humans to a Deathworld summit. Malachi reflected, raising his coffee cup in a toast. Biggest mistake they ever made. Or the best decision they never intended. Nyota countered with a smile. Beyond the viewing window, a tour group of alien dignitaries cautiously made their way across a secured pathway, jumping at every strange sound or movement from the surrounding wilderness. Their human guide called out cheerfully, "Welcome to Voris 6. Remember, everything here wants to kill you, but don't worry. We've got your back." The warning sign at the entrance to the planet, visible to all incoming ships and visitors, had become something of a galactic inside joke. Voris 6, where death is just the beginning of your adventure. Human-owned and operated. All rights reserved.